In the spring of 1978, teenagers were disappearing from Morgan City, Louisiana. One girl left home to buy batteries and never came back. 2 more vanished from a grocery store. Another 2 got into a car after a school fair and were never seen again. At first, people told themselves there had to be explanations, that the teens had run away, that the cases weren't connected. But as weeks passed and bodies were found, it became clear that someone was moving quietly through this small town, taking advantage of trust and leaving families with questions that would never be answered. This is their story.
Hi, I'm Vanessa.
And I'm Amy.
And you're listening to She Goes by Jane. At the end of this episode and every episode, we will be joined by a special guest who will read an original poem by Amy Baker about the women we're featuring.
Hi, Vanessa.
Hi, Amy.
Vanessa, definitely historically and continuing, you do not know about the cases before we start talking. But last night we were at book club and I did let some information
You did.
slip.
Yeah, you and the other book club gals were having quite a conversation about this.
Yeah, so
Did you see me try to walk away a bit?
I did.
I was like, all of a sudden, like, I have to go throw my teacup out. Oh, I have to go do this. I was like, I don't want to hear it. But I did hear it.
Yes. So they were fascinated by what we're about to talk about today because it is pretty shocking. I do want to caution everyone that, of course, like, we have to remember that no matter what happened to the people who are involved, the victims in this case, like, they were people. And so what happens to them is shocking. But we just really have to remember, like, these are people who lived, who were loved. And I want to just keep that at the top of our heads as we're going through.
Okay. And from what I did overhear, some of them are very, very young.
Yes. So this is, sometimes we cover cases where there are multiple missing persons connected for some reason. So this is a multiple missing persons case.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. You ready?
Yep.
Morgan City, Louisiana goes by the tagline, right in the middle of everywhere. Tucked alongside the Atchafalaya River and not far from the Intercoastal Waterway, you can drive for about an hour and end up in Lafayette, Baton Rouge, or New Orleans. Still, not many people outside of Louisiana would recognize its name. It's a small town now, its population hovering just over 10,000. But in 1978, Morgan City was nearly twice the size, swollen by a booming oil industry that drew in workers from all over the country. And that growth came with tension. Families who had lived in St. Mary Parish for generations found themselves living alongside outsiders, mostly men, who arrived for a season or 2 of work before moving on. The town felt busier, louder, less familiar. Still, life went on. Teenagers walked home at night. Parents trusted routines. Ordinary errands stayed ordinary. Against that backdrop, just as spring flowers began to bloom in March of 1978, 16-year-old Mary Rodermund left her home to run a quick errand. She went to a local pharmacy to buy batteries. She never came back. The family car Mary had borrowed was later found abandoned in the parking lot. Mary herself was nowhere to be found. Then, in April, something else happened. Customers arrived at a local grocery store and noticed something was wrong. The door was open, the lights were on, no one was inside. They called the police. When officers arrived, they found 19-year-old Bridget Cantrell Sons' cigarette still smoldering in the ashtray behind the counter. Bridget was gone. So was 17-year-old Gordon Canella Jr., who had stopped by the store to talk to her that night. And then, in May, it happened again. 15-year-old Judy Ann Adams and 14-year-old Bertha Gould attended a fair at Central Catholic High School. On the way home, the girls got in a car with a man, and they were never seen alive again. Speculation spread quickly through Morgan City. Were the teens runaways? Were the disappearances connected? Was this a coincidence or something far worse? It wouldn't take long for the truth to become clear. Someone was stalking the children of Morgan City, Louisiana, and he had done it before.
Okay, so yeah, you named a lot of names there. I don't know if I completely kept track, but we are going to get into these stories a little bit more, right? So
yes,
I will learn who's who as we carry on.
Right, as much as possible. Now, Mary's disappearance was the first sign that something was deeply wrong in the small town of Morgan City. It's likely that many lifelong residents knew the Rodermunds. Mary was one of 6 children, the youngest of 4 boys and 2 girls, and most people called her by her middle name, Lee, the name she preferred over her first name. She had just turned 16 the month before she disappeared on February 2nd, and she was already looking forward to the future. Though she'd worked as a department store cashier, she had recently quit her job. As a sophomore at Morgan City High School, Mary appeared regularly on the honor roll. She planned to go to college, and she had a clear goal in mind. She wanted to become a psychiatrist. But in many ways, Mary was like teenagers everywhere, then and now. Her friend Denise told reporters that Mary liked to go to parties and study with her boyfriend, adding, "She's not really quiet. You wouldn't call her quiet. She liked to go to dances and listen to records." Her neighbor, Sammy Russo, remembered her this way. "She's just super. She's just as sweet a person as you'd ever want to meet." Sammy trusted Mary to babysit her children, something parents don't do lightly. Thursday, March 2nd, 1978, should have been an ordinary day. That evening, Mary realized she needed batteries for her radio. She gathered her things, picked up her burgundy purse, and drove to the Inglewood Mall on Victor II Boulevard. Vanessa, I realize as I'm saying that, do the people of Morgan City say Victor II Boulevard or Victor II Boulevard?
I really don't know. It just looks like Victor II, but would you just say the second? Is it implied?
I don't know. I mean, I come from the land where there's distinct places where you say the before a road and not. And someone asked me what the rules were, and I was like, you just know the rules? So I don't know. People of Morgan City.
So either Victor II Boulevard or Victor II Boulevard.
Yeah.
We'll just go with either.
You
guys
covered all
know
bases.
what we mean.
We've covered all bases. Right?
Yes.
But the important part is that is where Mary is going.
Okay. And that's where she's going to, what kind of store is she going to?
She's going to a drugstore to get
drugstore.
batteries.
Okay.
Yeah. So she stopped at K&B drugstore around 8 o'clock, and she bought batteries and then left. And no one ever saw Mary again. When she didn't come home, her family contacted the police. Officers later found the Rodermund's car abandoned in the drugstore parking lot. Nothing appeared disturbed, though, so there's no signs of a struggle, and Mary hadn't left behind her purse, her keys, or any clue as to where she might have gone. As one family friend told reporters, speaking only on condition of anonymity, poof, she just vanished. We have nothing so far. Nobody has seen her.
Well, and that's really kind of what happened, right?
Yeah. Just there and then gone.
Huh.
I think not enough conversation happens about how quickly someone disappears. Because it can happen so fast.
I think that was I remember when we were, because we've passed, crossed paths many times in the past. But then when we first actually started to know each other and work together and everything, that was one of the first things you told me. It was we're starting to talk about laying the foundation for a documentary.
Yeah.
And it was just funny because you were that's serious. You can disappear into a trunk in 30 seconds. And I'm
yeah,
what the heck? But it was just, it always is one of my first memories of you actually telling me anything is that. Scary little tidbit of information. But whenever something like this happens along that line, I'm she's right.
Right. Yeah, because everyone thinks that kidnappings and disappearances it'd be some sort of prolonged type situation, but it can happen so quickly. Right. So poof, right?
Gone.
It's exactly catching that, right? Yeah. So something happened to her, but what? And so within hours of her disappearance, though, Mary's father, Carl Rodermund, receives a phone call. The caller claimed that Mary had been kidnapped and demanded $5,000 for her return. But the caller gave no instructions, no location, no plan for how the money should be delivered.
So how's that even possible? And that's not a lot of money even then.
No, it's a low ask, right? Now, 8 hours after Mary was last seen, the phone rang again. This time, Carl heard his daughter's voice on the phone. "Hi, I'm okay," Mary said. It was really the proof the family desperately needed. It was confirmation that Mary was alive. that this wasn't a cruel hoax, that someone wasn't just calling them to like prank call them. And yet, once again, there were no instructions, no way to get the money to whoever was holding her. The family waited for the phone to ring again. It never did. Mary's brief, trembling reassurance that she was okay was the last time anyone ever heard from her.
I'm so curious as to like why, like the why of all of this.
Like, why was that phone call made?
Yeah, what was like the motive of the phone call if it wasn't to actually get the money?
Mm-hmm.
And why would they let Mary speak to her family too?
Exactly.
If it's not to get the money.
Like, because that was like a proof of life call, right?
But do we need that at that point if it's just a straight up kidnapping and there's no ransom involved at all?
Yeah, so like they're asking for money. They've given proof of life which verifies that this is Mary, but then that's it.
Yeah.
Like,
like, did they think this was a good idea and then kind of like get nervous?
Did they forget that there's an important component of a
Right.
ransom demand, right?
Right.
I don't know, but like what ends up happening is that unlike a lot of missing teenagers cases, part of this call does help the search for Mary begin immediately, because with the ransom call and the possibility that she's been taken across state lines, et cetera, the FBI is also brought in. So this is dramatically different than a lot of cases that we talk about when there's a missing teenager. It's like very clear that someone has taken her.
Right. It's not, oh, she ran away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, Mary's father, Carl Rodermund, was an oil executive, and investigators began questioning both current and former employees of the company he worked for. No concrete leads emerged, but that didn't stop the speculation from spreading around Morgan City. Distrust of outsiders had already been simmering just beneath the surface, and in absence of answers, some residents began to wonder whether transient offshore oil workers, like men from Oklahoma or Texas or Mississippi or Arkansas, if they could be responsible for this. There's no evidence to support that theory, but again, there's very little evidence of any kind. April 2nd, 1 month after Mary was last seen, the investigation had really stalled, and FBI spokesman Al Sims was blunt when speaking to reporters. "It's cold," he said. Sims went on to explain, "We've talked to half the people in Morgan City already. Everything that we were able to develop concerning the girl indicated that it was a legitimate kidnap, not a runaway or a hoax or anything like that. We're still operating on that premise." As the initial intensity of the investigation began to wane, life, at least on the surface, started to resume its routines. Mary's siblings, who had brushed home from college when she disappeared, returned to their respective campuses. Carl Rodermund spoke openly about kind of the strange limbo and what that felt like. "Probably for 2 weeks we anticipated something," he said. "Since then, not too much, although every call is possibly the secret hope and a little anticipation that it will be from her kidnappers." Then he stopped himself. "Things have pretty much returned to normal?" "No, that's wrong. I take it back," Carl said. "Things have not returned to normal, or they probably won't until we have some word. As far as the outward appearance, they have. Inwardly, I guess, they haven't, and they probably won't for some time."
I can't imagine that feeling. Like it is like being in limbo, right? Like this spot where they really have no choice but to go back.
Mm-hmm.
You have to still go to work. The other kids still have to be in school.
Yeah. I've been thinking about that a lot lately, about kind of what happens when something terrible has happened, either, nationally or globally or personally.
Mm-hmm.
And what that's like also to just do everyday tasks, because that does happen, right? And but then people have also carry a certain amount of guilt and shame for kind of going into their everyday lives.
Right. It's that thing of trying to trudge through that grief, and the world is still spinning for you, even though it's not for someone else. And so sometimes even that first meal after that first, everything feels, there is an amount of guilt.
Yeah.
That person's not enjoying that with you. That person's not doing that thing with you. And it's a lot. And then on the other hand, we all know what that feels like. Mm-hmm. But then on the other side of it, everybody's expecting them to still just go on.
Exactly. Right. But on April 12th, though, there is a small flicker of hope. Law enforcement released composite sketches of 2 potential suspects. Witnesses had reported seeing a gray or maybe white Ford sedan, believed to be a 1966 to 1968 model, near the area around 4:45 p.m., and again later that evening around 7:45. That's on the day Mary disappeared. 2 men were said to be inside the car, and both were believed to be in their 30s. It really wasn't much, but for the first time, the search for Mary had faces attached to it. And then on Thursday, April 27th, it happened again. This time, 19-year-old Bridget Cantrell Sons is working the evening shift at the Penny Saver store on Louisiana 182 in nearby Bayou Vista. So this is about 9 miles-ish west.
Okay.
Her friend and customer, Gordon Canella, was visiting her that evening. But around 10:15 or so that night, customers arrived at the store to find the lights still on and the door unlocked, but no one was inside. So they quickly notified the police, and when authorities arrived, they too found the store eerily empty. Bridget's cigarette was still burning in a nearby ashtray, and her purse was behind the counter. Outside, they found Gordon's car in the parking lot, which was left as though he'd just gone inside. And on the ground in the parking lot, though, were his own cigarette pack. The only indication that something was amiss, besides the 2 missing teenagers, that is that $156 is missing from the cash register.
Again, it's not very much.
No.
It's funny too when you're reading this because I'm like, wow, both these kids smoke, but we were in the time of, we were in the 70s.
Right.
It was fine.
I mean, yeah, so both the kids smoked. And also Bridget at this point is married. So she's a married 19-year-old.
So she's a married woman smoking a cigarette at work.
Yeah.
It's the 70s.
Right. And so like this is kind of treated as like a robbery because of the missing money. And after questioning customers, police were able to pinpoint their disappearances happening sometime between 9:30 and 10:15 p.m., which is a short 45-minute window. But as we now know, you can be stuffed in a trunk in 30 seconds. Right?
Yes.
They just seem to vanish, much like Mary had. This time, though, there are no ransom calls and no whispered assurances from the missing.
And they're definitely not people who would have run away.
No, there's not a lot of conversation about this case, which I find interesting. Like Mary's case gets a lot of conversation in the local papers, but these 2, when they went missing, there's much less like newspaper fervor about their disappearance.
With her being a married woman, I wonder if anyone was like, oh, they ran away together.
It's possible that like what were the rumors happening in Morgan City and Bayou Vista at this time, right?
Yeah.
Now, by May 1st, though, sheriff's deputies had hypnotized witnesses, because this was also back in the era of hypnosis for witnesses.
70s were wild.
Yeah. Now, they're hoping to gather information based on this, and witnesses were able to describe seeing 2 men who had been in the store. One was 5'6" in his early 20s. The other was 6 foot in his 30s. So just like in Mary's case, this kind of gave a face to the search, but it didn't lead investigators any closer to finding the teenagers. And then it happens again. It's Thursday, May 11th.
Was the last one Thursday?
Yes. And the first one.
The first one was Thursday too? I didn't pay attention to the first one. Mm-hmm. But I just, always on a Thursday.
This all takes place on Thursdays, yeah.
It's so weird.
Mm-hmm.
Are they evenly spaced too?
No. Which is also weird.
Huh, okay.
Yeah. Now, this time it's 15-year-old Judy Ann Adams and 14-year-old Bertha Gould, who are attending a high school fair hosted by the Central Catholic High School at the Municipal Auditorium in Morgan City. Despite the unease of the still missing teens present probably in everyone's mind, it was a pleasant night. Like teens were gathering together, laughter and jokes were shared amongst friends. It's just a nice night out. And Bertha and Judy were just that. They're 2 friends who spent the evening together before heading home late at night, walking together for safety and companionship. That wasn't to be. The 2 never made it home. Despite the series of disappearances before them, both Judy and Bertha are believed by the police at this time to have run away. I'm guessing presumably because they went missing together.
Okay.
And though they were close in age to Mary, their sudden disappearance made little waves in the local papers. In fact, the press and law enforcement used the headlines as a way to talk about Mary's disappearance, which drawing a stark contrast to how the cases were handled. So like this was just another opportunity to bring up Mary's disappearance, right?
Yeah. Are they just not wanting to get people frantic?
I think that, yeah, I mean, I have read at the time that like people of Morgan City were pretty nervous. Like kids were starting to get scared to go out, and like they're carrying like little pocket knives with them and that kind of thing. But
well, like the buddy system isn't working. Being with a man isn't working. Like all of that is
like all the things that we're kind of told, like these things will make you safe, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like Mary was by herself, but Bridget went missing with a 17-year-old guy standing there, which you would never think would happen, right?
Like while at work, right?
While at work.
Yeah.
Like everything there seems very safe. She seems safe.
Yeah. I mean, because like I think we say, like we just get used to saying some things like, oh, like if you're with someone, you'll be safe, right? If you are in a building of some sort, like you're safer, right? Like, but or like, you know, it's kind of that thing like, oh, well, you know, don't go to work at night alone if you're a single person, like particularly if you're a woman. But like her friend was visiting.
Yeah. Friend was visiting. He's a boy. Yeah, because like anybody could say, well, 2 girls, it's still not safe. 2 young girls. But we are taught that 2 young girls is so much safer than 1 young girl out by themselves, right? So this is going against everything. So maybe just keeping that out of the papers is a way of not causing the local people to panic.
Right. I mean, at this time, like Chief Ratcliffe, who's with the Morgan City Police Department, he's mostly trying to like quell some of the like rash of rumors that are going around about Mary. And he emphasized like, oh, they're just rumors. Now, he doesn't give voice to what those rumors were specifically about Mary, but he did say that he had the Morgan City PD check them out and found them to be, in his words, erroneous. So like apparently there's like chatter happening at the time about what people think happened to Mary specifically.
Well, I think people always like to have a reason so that it doesn't feel so random.
Right. Now, behind the scenes, because that's kind of what you were getting at earlier, like the police chief actually did start to take a different track in investigating Judy and Bertha's disappearance, kind of as the days passed and there was no word from either teen. Now, Chief Randy Ratcliffe, he began to think maybe they could have been kidnapped. And this is largely because during their investigation, they'd learned the teens were seen getting into a 1965 to 1973 white sedan, possibly a Valiant or a Rambler. And this had been around 11:30 p.m., around the time they would have left the school fair. This sighting happened near the corner of Redwood Avenue and Victor II Boulevard, which was several blocks away from the municipal auditorium where the fair had been held. So several men had seen the teens talking to a man by his car. It was startlingly less than half a mile from where Mary had been seen. And the presence of a white sedan or gray sedan in both locations was a strong clue that the cases might be connected. In just 3 short months, 5 teenagers were missing and no one had a clue where they could be. Now, investigators working on the case kept returning to this car. They'd narrowed it down to a handful of years and types from earlier reports, but after they followed through with investigating Judy and Bertha as possible kidnap victims, they were able to get the plate number from those who witnessed the odd scene that night, which again, kudos to them. I never look at plate numbers or remember them, right? Now, running it, the police learned that it belonged to a man named Frank Green, who lived in Bayou Vista, which is, again, just a short 10-minute drive from Morgan City. And this is where Bridget and Gordon went missing from. Police set out to speak with him, but when they went, he wasn't home. So they spoke to his neighbor, Sidney Harris, instead, and they collected some of Frank Green's fingerprints. Now, law enforcement had kept all of this information out of the news. As far as anyone knew, they were still considering Judy and Bertha's disappearance as a runaway case. What they couldn't anticipate was that Sidney, the neighbor that they had spoken to, would warn Frank, the person that they were looking into, that the police had been by. Now, before police could even lay eyes on him, Frank was gone, like fleeing the state.
Why would you do that?
Yeah. We'll be back in a moment. Now, it's around then, which is nearly 2 weeks after they disappeared, that police made it clear to the media that they believed that Judy and Bertha were kidnapping victims. At first, they kept their suspicions about Frank Green to themselves, but at least they were saying to the public, like, yeah, Judy and Bertha might have been kidnapped.
Mm-hmm.
Without being able to speak with Frank themselves, they were left with only questions. Where was Frank Green, and could he have done something to the teens? Running his fingerprints brought a wealth of dread. Frank Green, they learned, was an alias. The real name of the man they were looking for was Robert Carl Hohenberger, a 35-year-old Indiana native who had been in San Quentin for kidnapping and was wanted by California authorities on kidnapping and rape charges.
How do you think Sydney feels now?
Yeah, Sydney.
Like, if the police are looking for your neighbor, let them just, like, explore that a little bit, unless you know without a doubt that they're innocent on whatever it is.
Like, oh, my God.
But,
right.
yeah, let's not hide the guy who's already served time in San Quentin.
So I don't know if Sydney would have known that, but, like, this is who was there, right? Now, the pieces start coming together, and the search turned more intensive. On Thursday, May 25th, 1978, law enforcement officers descended on the apartment that Robert Hohenberger had been renting. The apartment was part of a larger commercial business, a welding company, and Hohenberger had lived above the welding shop and worked on the premises. The company itself was like many businesses in the area. It was located along Bayou Teche, and investigators had been struck by the enormity of the task ahead of them. Like, not only searching the property, but would they potentially have to search the bayou itself? Now, at 6:42 p.m., two St. Mary Parish Sheriff's Department deputies, Ove Rogers and Duval Arthur, lifted the cover of the concrete septic tank on the property. Inside were the bodies. Two victims who had been weighed down and were inside the tank.
What made them look in the tank to begin with?
Okay, so this is hard to hear, but it was the smell.
Okay.
There was like an overwhelming odor.
So when they were searching, they just smelled something coming from there?
Yeah.
So that's why they went?
Maybe we should check. And this is not like a residential septic tank. This is a big commercial septic situation.
Oh, okay. I was like, why would you? Okay.
Yeah. Now, it's a shocking discovery, the images of which Rogers, I know, carried with him the rest of his life. It had been weeks since the last kidnapping, and though the sheriff's department wouldn't release their identities, it was thought it was Judy Adams and Bertha Gould inside the tank. The remains were sent to the crime lab and the coroner's office for identification. And while they awaited answers, the search for the three other missing teens continued. That Friday, divers took to the bayou looking for more answers. But early Saturday morning, it would be a farmer who found the next victim, not divers. Walking in a Calmet cane field about 5 miles west of the welding shop, the farmer came across the bound form of Gordon Canella, who had been kidnapped alongside Bridget Sons from the local store on April 27th.
But no Bridget.
No Bridget. Because later that day, the actual first identification of the victims inside the septic tank was released to the public. One of them was actually Bridget Sons.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, so, because we were thinking it was Judy and Bertha. Judy and Bertha went missing together.
Yeah.
And then Bridget and Gordon went missing together, but they're in two different places and she's with a different body now?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that they thought, like, you know, that the two in the septic tank obviously would be Judy and Bertha because they were last seen together, but that wasn't the case at all.
And why would you put him in the field? Because he's in a field, right?
Yeah.
He's and her field. In there with somebody else. Why would you do that? Okay.
Yeah. Now, officials would only say that they could not immediately identify the second person in the tank, and they declined to answer as to the level of decomposition when pushed by the press. The press really wanted the gory details. That day, FBI spokesman Francis Mullen also released a statement saying, "The motive in the kidnapping is sex. There is no question about that at this point."
They could tell that from the bodies?
I'm not sure what led him in that direction, but that was his public statement. Okay. Mullen then turned his attention to the search for Hohenberger. "We know he has been in Florida," he said. "We know he has been in California. This search is a nationwide effort." Monday, the second identification was made public. Using dental records and old x-rays of her broken ribs, they identified the second person as Judy Adams. All 3 teenagers had been bound and strangled to death. Missing still was Bertha Gould, who had been walking home with Judy that night, and Mary Rodermund, who had been missing the longest since March 2nd. With Gordon having been found so far away in the cane field, officials widened their search range, getting in jeeps and searching by foot in an ever-widening radius, looking for Mary and Bertha. Meanwhile, the search for Hohenberger continued into a nationwide manhunt for a man everyone knew was capable of striking again. As the search for Robert Hohenberger got underway, details about his past kept becoming more clear, alarming everyone who was involved in the case. The news was startling to some, like Fred Malzam, who was his former boss back in Bayou Vista. "He seemed like the nicest fellow I ever met in my life," Fred said. "He was just a nice, quiet, polite guy, the last guy in the world you'd expect doing something like this."
I believe it because Sydney didn't suspect him.
Yeah, well...
No shade to Sydney. Because, I mean, honestly, who would suspect their neighbor of doing something like that? Or somebody in the community or somebody that they know or work with? Like, even if you don't like somebody, even if you have, like, an off vibe from them, you're not going to expect this.
Oh, yeah. So, like, when you do get a vibe from someone, you don't necessarily jump to, like, serial offender, potential serial killer, right?
Exactly. Yeah. You're going to be like, oh, maybe I should just watch out around this person, but you won't be like, yeah, this person has been killing multiple children at a time.
Right.
Yeah.
But to be clear, Hohenberger has a very dark past.
Okay.
And this will help us sort of conceptualize a little bit about like what is going on here. So in 1966, while living in the desert area around Indio, California, Hohenberger had been volunteering as an auxiliary police officer, which seems strange to me that you could just volunteer as a police officer, but that's what he was doing. That's when a 25-year-old school teacher named Mary Jo was on her way home to Phoenix, Arizona after spending time in Los Angeles. Like, I have done this drive many times. Near Desert Center, she was pulled over by Hohenberger in his patrol car. Instead of giving her a ticket, he made her get out of the car, and he put handcuffs on her and said she was under arrest for possible narcotics. Placing her into his patrol car, he actually drove them to a side road in the desert and then attempted to rape her at gunpoint. After Mary Jo reported the crime and Hohenberger was arrested, he was released on bail. And in March 1967, that trial got underway, but a mistrial was declared 7 days into it. Before it could be tried again, Hohenberger pleaded guilty to the charge of assault with a deadly weapon. Under the condition, the charges for the kidnapping and attempted rape would just be dropped.
Oh, did they do that?
Yeah. So they took the guilty plea on the weapons charge, but dropped the other ones.
Huh.
And so for that, he was fined $400 and put on 3 years probation.
Huh. Why would they do that? Why would they agree to that?
Yeah. So, I mean, it depends on exactly why exactly the jury was like, a mistrial was had. Like, there's a whole lot of not believing women, right? And so it was like, well, at least we can get him on a guilty charge for this, I guess. But we do know in 1971, he was in prison again for a different assault with a deadly weapon charge. But 3 years into that sentence, he escaped while on work duty outside of the prison. On April 15th, 1974, which, by the way, my birthday, I wasn't alive yet, but on April 15th, 1974, 19-year-old newlyweds Richard and Victoria Dubois were out hiking in the Mount Tamalpais area of California. Heading out on their hike, they went to pass by a man on the trail, and little did they know they were face to face with an escaped convict, Robert Hohenberger. As they went to kind of maneuver around him on the trail, he actually reaches out and grabs Victoria around the neck and puts a knife to her throat. "I'm an ex-convict," the man said. "Give me your keys, keep cool, and nothing will happen."
If you escape, are you still considered an ex-convict?
Yeah, I was like, that's not really true. You were actually
you are a convict,
not an ex-convict. Mm-hmm. Now, Richard, did give him the keys, but that really wasn't enough for Hohenberger. He forced the couple into their Volkswagen. Victoria was put up front with Hohenberger, and her arms were tied behind her back with a strip of fabric torn from Hohenberger's prison uniform. Richard was put in the back, but he was also bound and then kind of covered with a blanket. For the next 7 hours, Hohenberger drove Victoria and Richard around California. They passed through 7 counties, seemingly without a destination in mind. I mean, he kept on saying, like, various places he was driving to, but they just kept driving and driving. He told them both that he was serving time for killing 2 people, which to my understanding was a lie, and that although authorities didn't know it, he was responsible for 17 more murders.
So he said he served time for killing 2 people, but he actually had never served time for killing anyone.
It does not appear to be true, no.
But they think he already had killed up to 17 people at that point?
No, he said he was responsible for killing 17 people.
Oh, he said that.
So he's like...
Oh, he was like... Oh, so he was like, oh, I was in jail for 2 people, but really it's...
Like, I've killed 17 more. Yeah.
19. Okay, wow.
Yeah. Now, it's unclear if that's, like, true or if he's just using that to, like, traumatize the couple even more.
Were they ever able to find out if there were other people that he killed before this point?
I mean, I think that he's suspected of more, but, like, we don't have
We just don't know at that point.
Now, while he's driving and talking, Victoria said he just kept on reaching over and touching her breasts. Finally, at around 8:30 p.m., he pulls into a Midway truck stop outside Santanella and gasses up. But before he gets out to fill up the tank, he removes the bindings from Victoria's hands because he's worried that someone might see that she's bound. Now, Victoria, she knows that she only has moments to act. She said, "I thought this was our only chance, so I locked all the doors and started screaming." When the gas station attendants came running out, Hohenberger tried to brush it off. He said, "They're my crazy relatives. Don't pay them no mind." Now, inside the car, Richard, who's been under the blanket, right? He sits up. He puts his bound hands to the window so everyone can see, right? And that's when Hohenberger realizes the jig is up and he takes off running. He was caught shortly later.
So they finally got him. It's just, I think it's great that Victoria took that chance. Because a lot of people don't, you know?
Like, she was like, this is my moment.
This is it. I'm going to end up in a bad situation regardless. So.
Yeah. And that she, like, locked all the, like, she was just, like, moving so fast, right? Mm-hmm. Now, for his escape, he's sentenced to 6 months to 5 years. And for kidnapping Victoria and Richard, he's sentenced from 1 to 25 years.
Those are huge ranges.
Those are huge ranges.
6 months to 5 years and 1 to 25 years.
Yeah. Now, by 1977, which is just 3 years later, we do know he is out again and looking for more victims. This time, he set his sights on the College of the Desert in Palm Desert, California. On October 13th, he approached a college student on campus and forced her into his car at gunpoint. From there, he drove her to a deserted area where he raped her and beat her. On October 31st, he tried again, this time approaching a 20-year-old student as she was walking near the liberal arts building around 10:30 p.m. He drew his gun, grabbed her, and then tried to drag her towards the parking lot. She knew what he was trying to do, so she fake fainted, letting her body go limp as she fell to the ground. He tried to get her up. He's like pulling on her and demanding she get up, and she did, but like suddenly and burst away from him, screaming and running towards the library.
I really love this girl.
Like the fake.
The fake. She just is going to keep trying things till she gets away. And it worked.
Yeah. Now, because she's like creating such a commotion, there are witnesses to this assault. Like 3 men see this happening. They chase after Hohenberger. They get him into the parking lot, but he holds them at bay with his gun. And he then is able to get into his car and drive away. Thankfully, though, they're able to get a partial plate number and they reported this to police. And so everyone's notified immediately, like in the surrounding areas. Police are circling looking for him. And 20 minutes later, they actually spot his car and a police chase ensues. And eventually he loses control of his car, but ultimately they are not able to capture him and he gets away. Now, police identified Hohenberger immediately as the owner of the car, but they held off identifying him anywhere publicly when this is initially reported. And they do this because they hope that he's just going to go about his regular daily life and go to work so they can capture him there because they can't find him. Unfortunately, he calls in sick and doesn't come in.
So he just disappears again?
Yeah. And so they're like, okay. But then they're never able to find him. He just disappears.
Like forever?
Yeah. So like he's out. He's
Forever.
gone. Well, because less than 2 months later, in December, he resurfaces in Louisiana, right?
Oh, right. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Probably don't do the forever part.
Do you want to do that again?
Yeah. So I'll do...
Okay.
And that's it. He just disappeared and then just... Yeah. And then you can go with your... But also, like, he's only serving 3 years for all these repeated crimes. And then he just keeps doing... Like, are they not catching on? Like, he escaped prison.
Yeah.
Normally, they really care about that.
Escaped prison, kidnapped some people. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So anyways. So that's it? He just disappears?
Yeah. He takes off out of California, and less than 2 months later, around December of that year, he resurfaces in Louisiana, and there he starts setting his sights on Mary, Bridget, Gordon, Bertha, and Judy. News of Robert Hohenberger's crimes would spread across the country through a nationwide bulletin which was issued on May 28th. The last sighting of his car had been in Bossier City, Louisiana, and everyone knew that he could just be about anywhere at this point. On May 31st, he was charged with 3 charges of murder, 2 of aggravated kidnapping, and 1 charge of armed robbery. And little did anyone know that that day everything would come to an head. An observant police officer named Lieutenant Elling Marvick had seen an ad placed in Washington State's Tacoma Tribune, and that ad came out on May 25th. It was listing for a 1970 model Plymouth for sale with new tires. And though the ad listed a man named Don Cotter as the owner, Marvick thought the situation seemed a little bit odd when he went to go look at the car. He'd say later, "I felt something rather suspicious about the situation. It was a Louisiana car, he was living alone, and was broke." When he ran a check on the car, it came back belonging to a man named Frank Green, and that was enough confirmation that something was wrong. Like, why is it listed as Don Cotter, but this car says it belongs to Frank Green, right? Mm-hmm. And then when this bulletin comes out, well, that's even more confirmation. Like, this is the man that people are looking for. On May 31st, Marvick heads back to the Jefferson Avenue apartments, this time with 3 plainclothes officers in tow. Marvick tells the car's owner that he wanted to look at the car again as a way to lure him outside. And using a prearranged signal, Marvick summoned the other officers and told Hohenberger he was under arrest. A brief scuffle ensued, and during it, Hohenberger actually shot himself in the head. He was rushed to St. Joseph's Hospital in Tacoma, where he underwent surgery, but he died from his injuries just a few short hours later.
So he never actually served time for any of this?
No.
I'm still so surprised about like how little he got. He only got 3 years after that last incident. He'd kidnapped 2 people.
Yeah.
But he, like, more than that, he escaped prison before that too. Not more than that, but like
in addition,
you would think in addition to that, he escaped prison, but you'd think that's what people like law enforcement would really be focusing on, because it's usually not taken lightly when someone escapes prison.
Right. I mean, like, it is really hard to kind of fathom, because it's like, okay, well, so he now at this point, like before he even escapes, he had 2 assault with a deadly weapons charges, right? Like, ends up in prison. He's an escapee. He like kidnaps people and takes them on this like terrifying 7-hour drive. Like, and like, yeah, just like very little jail time for him, prison time. And so like, then he ends up in Louisiana murdering 5 teenagers. And it's just like, it's so, the escalation here, the like patterning. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
Now they do a search of his apartment, but like there's just very few clues there. He's like, really, he's not lived there that long. Like, it's just been a few days, really.
Okay.
They did find a .22 caliber rifle, a 7-inch hunting knife. They did find a windbreaker that had been covered in blood, but they didn't find any evidence that would lead them to the recovery of Bertha Gould or Mary Rodermund. Later, law enforcement officials would come to believe that it was possible that Hohenberger had used a fake badge to force the missing teenagers to get into the vehicle with him when he kidnapped them. Because there's like this certain authority, like, you know, like police officers are seen as authority figures, and you might go along with something that maybe even when you're feeling more of a sense of caution, it will just override that.
Also just afraid to challenge that, right?
Exactly. Like, if you think back to like the incident where he assaults Mary Jo in the desert, right? Mm-hmm. Like he tells her like he's arresting her for narcotics, and she like very well knows like she doesn't have narcotics on her, but like he gets to say what he wants, right?
Right.
Yeah. Now, while the world seemed to go on after Hohenberger's death, the families of those he killed couldn't, particularly Mary Rodermund and Bertha Gould's families are just left without their loved ones to bury. And Morgan City was left wondering what to do and how to protect their residents from what they saw as predatory outsiders. Anthony Grosco, who was a state senator, said, "The townspeople were almost on the verge of vigilantism, trying to find out who did these horrible things. It was obvious that normal law and order techniques did not work." His solution here was a law that would permit Morgan City to pass an ordinance that would require workers to get identity cards if they were seeking or changing jobs in St. Mary Parish. When the system went into place, 4,000 people had to obtain ID cards within the first 2 months. They had to pay $10.50 in order to register. And the application process required them to list relatives, driver's license numbers, phone numbers, social security numbers, any nicknames they might have. They also had to get fingerprints and photographs done as well.
And this is to anybody that lives there if they're...
No, so it's like it's a very interesting one. It's if you have if you're seeking or changing a job. So like all of these, kind of quote outsider men who are coming in, they would be required to like do this registration before they were able to get a job.
So they were like singling out the outsiders. So like
yes.
if you worked at one store and you wanted to change to a different and you're a longtime resident, you don't have.
So you would. And
you would still have to do it.
Yeah. So like if you were a longtime resident and then you changed jobs, you would actually have to go through the registration process as well. And that really angered a lot of locals because they were like, no, we wanted this law to target outsiders, not
right.
us.
And then every time you change jobs, you have to pay $10.50.
So I don't know how long the registration would last, but yeah, I think you would have to, right?
Yeah.
Now, and so like that creates this tension because like the locals were like, no.
And fingerprinting.
Yeah. They're like, we want it to be those people who have to be kept an eye on, not us. We didn't mean us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
And so like, it's such a weird kind of moment, right? Now, some people continue to justify it, though. There was one official who said that when the FBI had been there looking into the disappearances in the area, the FBI had said there was a, quote, overabundance of fugitives for a community of this size. So it's just like, okay, well, it sucks, but it's protecting us from...
So they're basically saying there's an overabundance of, like, bad people in our...
that are coming in.
Area?
Yeah.
So we need to do this? So, I mean, it's hard, too, because you can't, like... single out this whole group of people that are coming into the area, but then at the same time having to go through all this. Say you just like work at one store in the mall and you want to transfer to a different store in the mall. Do you want to go through all of this?
Right. So and then like you would have to come up with the $10.50 in order to switch your job, like,
but also you feel like you're being treated like you're doing something wrong for switching jobs because you're getting like the fingerprinting and having to give your social security numbers and
all that,
photos.
It's a lot, right?
It's very invasive. Like it's a very
yeah. So like now the state senator though, he said it's mainly a psychological deterrent. If the son of Sam came down here, he'd think twice about putting his fingerprints and picture on file, even if he lied about his name or social security. Right?
Well,
so it's like all this
also
justification.
True.
But like, yeah, I mean, but it's just like this notion that the scary people are the outsiders.
Oh, it is. That's definitely, they're not saying that the scary person could be your neighbor.
Exactly. And from, in this instance, was the perpetrator an outsider? Yes. But from what we know about statistics and crime, like, it's very much often the insiders, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
Thankfully, this system caught the attention of the ACLU. And so they, very clearly pointed out, like, hey, this registration system sounds a lot like South Africa's passbook system or the Gestapo's registration system. So eventually this law is struck down through the ACLU's intervention, and Morgan City could no longer require registration of workers. But Again, like the law had done very little to make the city any safer. It had simply drawn a line between those who were believed to belong and those who didn't. And it certainly did nothing to bring Bertha and Mary home again. And at the time of this recording, Bertha Gould and Mary Rodermund have been missing for nearly 47 years. Now, if you have enjoyed our podcast, Vanessa and I would both really appreciate it if you subscribed and shared so that we can keep continuing to tell stories like Bertha and Mary's.
Louisiana Tempest. Mary Rodermund, 16, missing since March 2nd, 1978 from Morgan City, Louisiana. And Bertha Gould, 14, missing since May 11th, 1978 from Morgan City, Louisiana. Out on his morning walk, a farmer finds a body, the boy's arms bound behind him. It was spring then, the stalks of cane just beginning to break free from the dirt. Everyone looks towards the horizon, the slouch of cypress trees blocking the distant unfurling of a highway where a man is leaving fast, his taillights a devil coal red in the dark. I wanted to write a poem for you, your hand trailing over the rows of batteries in a long-ago convenience store, where your shoes catch on the sidewalk grit, scraping away your laughter. I wanted us to fall back into those days, before the man, before the boy in the field, and catch the light shimmer across the bayous one last time.
For more information about our show, please visit shegoesbyjanepodcast.com.
Bye, Vanessa.
Bye, Amy.